Welcome to In the Gym with Michael Petrella. On today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about high intensity training versus high volume training. The debate has been raging on for many years of which method is superior. We're going to be showing you the pros and cons of both and helping you figure out which may be best for you. Next, we're going to be talking a little bit about zone training. Now, zone training is the idea of breaking a set into different zones. This can be utilized with bodyweight training, free weights, or machines. Finally, we're going to be talking about advanced techniques. Now, these are techniques that I wouldn't necessarily prescribe to a beginner, but maybe someone who's been training for some time, an advanced subject, somebody that's at a plateau. It's going to help you get the most out of your training. Next, we're going to talk about the difference between high intensity training and high volume training. The debate has raged on for decades of which is more effective, and this debate will probably continue to rage on for many more decades. Now, high volume training is the idea that multiple sets are needed to elect this adaptive response in the muscle. So for any given exercise, you might do anywhere from 3 to 8, maybe 10 sets. Again, it is multiple set training. Now, in most cases, these sets are not done to momentary muscular failure. The reason being is if you did for too many of these sets, you would eventually burn out. The idea in high intensity training is you're putting everything you can into one singular set. A lot of times this is used with set extenders. Once momentary muscular failure is achieved, you will then continue to move the weight with the limited range that you have. With the aid of a training partner, you may do some forced repetitions. You may even do negative repetitions where you can no longer lift the weight, but somebody comes, lifts it for you, and you continue to lower it under control. Now, both methods have produced champions, and really that's what I want people to take home from this message, that both can be used effectively. What I want people to realize is that as intensity increases, duration has to decrease. So if you're going to put everything you have into one set, those workouts are going to have to be briefer and they're going to have to be more infrequent. Some people see this as a positive, some people see this as a negative. With the volume, because you're generally not working as hard in the sets, now this isn't a rule, but generally you are not, you're going to have to do more work, and a lot of people report that they can work out in the gym more often. So I'm going to get Connor to do a couple sets here using just the standard cable bicep curl. We're going to do a set traditionally the way most volume people do it, and he's going to basically terminate the set when the weight starts to slow down a bit. So Connor, I'm going to get you to do a set of bicep curls. Come on up. Now again, whether you're doing volume or whether you're doing intensity, we still want to have good form. Good. Perfect. Still using a full range of motion, still working the muscle, but the idea here is going to be he's not going to give this 100% effort. Or if you say he's doing 3 sets of 10, he's saving that 100% effort for the last set. Do a few more here, Connor. Good. Perfect. We're just going to get you to do one more. Good. Easing down. So again, with this set, what we're seeing, he's working the muscle. We might have stopped him a little bit premature, but he's leaving some in the tank. Again, we're normally doing multiple exercises, multiple sets. Now we're going to give him a couple minutes to rest, and we're going to do an intense set. We've given Connor a couple minutes to rest. Now we're going to do a high intensity set, and again, we're going to be doing this to momentary muscular failure and possibly beyond with some set extenders. So Connor. Keep posture. Good. Good. That's good form. Perfect. Good. Keep your breathing nice and free. Good. Good. Connor's doing a good job keeping his elbows at his sides. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. Good. Keep working, Connor. Going right to the edge. Come on. Up. Keep your posture. Keep your posture. Close that arm. Come on. Come on. Right to the top. Right to the top. Good. Easing down. Easing down. We'll go for another rep. Come on. Right to the top. Let's go. Let's go. Now give me a couple more in the bottom. Just work what you can. Keep working. Keep working. Yep. Come on. Keep using that range. Keep your chest up. Keep your chest up. Come on. Good, come on down. I'm going to help you with that one. Go as high as you can. Let's go. High as you can on your own. Keep working, keep working, keep working, keep working, keep working. 5 seconds on the lowering. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Perfect. Good job, Connor. So again, we're looking at that. It was everything Connor had. In one set, he exhausted his positive strength. We then actually went further into the intensity by giving him a forced repetition, making him really work on that last negative. Now, this style of training is not for everybody. It is very difficult to do this. It takes as much mental focus as it does physical strength. It is better in terms of the amount of time that you're spending. Because you're working harder, as I already stated, your duration has to be less and you have to be less frequent. For athletics, this may give you more time to be practicing your chosen sport. Again, for some people, they don't want to work this hard, and that's understandable. You can still build up that fatigue by doing a little bit more volume. Now, I will say that whether you choose volume or intensity, you still have to work hard. If everything you're doing is well within your capacity to do it, you're never going to get to the point where you are electing that adaptive response and you're not going to get any results. In the early 70s, we start to see a movement of exercise machines coming in vogue in the fitness industry. Now, the idea behind these original machines was to try to make exercise harder than their free weight counterpart. The problem with some free weight exercises is that the resistance that you're experiencing is not the same as the amount of force that the muscles can produce. Now, what I mean by this is you take a bicep curl, for example. When you're at the very bottom of the motion, there's almost no resistance. The weight is just hanging. As you start to curl and come to the middle, this is where you experience the most resistance, also called the sticking point. This is because gravity is directly pulling the weight down. As you get by this point and your leverage increases on the weight, you can use several times more resistance. Some people even pull their elbows up and the weight is actually pushing down on you, giving you negative resistance. This is of no value to the working muscle. So the practical solution they came up with was to introduce cams to exercise machines. This is a bicep movement, and as you curled your arm, the radius of the cam increased, and this increased the resistance. So as your leverage increased, it was giving you more resistance, in some cases as much as 20 to 30% more. Now, although this is a practical solution to the problem, it can also be expensive. People don't always have access to properly designed exercise machines. A lot of people, all they have access to is free weights. So utilizing zone training, I'm going to show people how to get the maximum benefit out of free weight exercise. So I'm going to get Brent to demonstrate this zone training with an easy curl bar for the biceps. Now what we're going to do is we're going to break this down into 3 zones. Now you can reverse this order. There's several different methods that you can use, but the simplest way is to use the hardest zone first and then work to the easiest. If he just does a full range repetition, at the very top, the resistance is going to feel quite easy to him because he has the leverage. But what we're going to do is we're going to fatigue the bicep through the harder zones first. Then when he comes up to the top, it's going to become a much more challenging exercise. So we're going to use the middle, or the sticking point. Then he's going to come down to the bottom, and then he's going to finish at the top. So I'm going to get you to do a few in the middle here, Brent. So you're coming up just about an inch above, about an inch below the sticking point, right there. Coming up. Don't come up too high. Just work in that middle range, just about here. Good. Come on down. We're going to do 2 more in the middle. Squeeze the bicep. Good. Just 1 more. Perfect. Now we're going to come down to the bottom. Notice he's not swinging his hips. He's not leaning back. The bicep's doing all the work. Coming up right there. Good. Perfect. We're just going to do 1 more on the bottom. Good. I'm going to help him to the top. And now if you do this correctly, come on down, right here. This should feel a lot heavier than if you do this full range. Good. Right there, squeezing the bicep. Again, the only thing that matters in a bicep curl is the closing of the arm. Everything else is other musculature. Just 1 more, Brent. Good. And come all the way down. Good. Done properly, he's working the muscle far more thoroughly. Now, I recommend that people don't do the first two zones to momentary muscular failure. A lot of times if that happens, by the time you get to the top, you almost have nothing left. So for beginners, work both zones quite hard, but make sure you have a little bit left, and then work the last zone right to momentary muscular failure. As most people know, the squat is one of the most effective exercises for building strength and muscle. This is because of the overall body effect that it has. It works musculature in the legs, the hips, and the back. It's a very hard exercise when done properly. But even when done properly through a full range of motion, you are limited to the weight that you can use in the lowest position. Basically, this is when you're in the bottom or in the hole. In this position, your leverages are at their weakest, and this is limiting the amount of weight that you can use. It was an old-time technique that people would set up 2 bars for squatting, one with a weight that they could use for a full range of motion, and then they would instantly go to a second bar with sometimes 30 to 40% more weight and only work the top half or the top third of the motion. Now, using zone training, we can accomplish the same thing with using a lighter weight. So Brent's going to demonstrate. He's going to use the swing squat machine, and he's going to come down to the bottom, right to the bottom. He's going to come up just about halfway. Hold, ease and down. Now in this position, his leverages are at their weakest. He's working the muscle extremely hard. Good. Come up just a little bit higher than that, right to the mid position. Good. We'll do 2 more, Brent. Come on up. Hold. Good. 1 more. Now from here, Brent is now going to do the top position. We're going to work him up to the top. Come on down just halfway, right there. Now if we were using the full weight that Brent can utilize, the fatigue in the quadriceps would be great enough that this would feel very, very heavy, even though he can handle substantially more weight in the top of the motion. Just do 1 more here, Brent. Come on up. Good, I'm going to rack that. Come on down. So he builds up the fatigue, again, in the weakest position, which is the bottom on a squat. And then, as he's closing in on muscular failure, we move to the top, where his leverage has increased, and we continue to move the weight, continuing to work the muscle. The great thing about zone training is we can take traditional movements that have been done by people for several years in their training, and we can really bring new life to them. Now, the 2 examples that we showed, we utilized the weakest part of the motion moving to the strongest part of the motion. But that doesn't have to be the case. You could do them in reverse. On the squat machine, I could have put a huge amount of weight at the top, got Brent to do that movement, stripped the weight down, and then made it very difficult in the bottom. On the squat machine, he did halves. On the bicep exercise, he did thirds. This can be reversed. So with a little bit of imagination, you can come up with all sorts of different movement patterns to challenge the body and, again, hopefully increase results. I want to talk a minute about certain advanced techniques you can use in training. A lot of people find great success using these techniques as a way of breaking through a plateau. The first I'm going to talk about is called negative only training. And what that means is you are only lowering the weight. No lifting is involved. Now, most people can lower about 40% more weight than they can lift. So by doing this, we create a great deal of fatigue in the muscle. This is not something I recommend is done all the time. People tend to hit overtraining fairly quickly while doing it, but using it once in a while as a way to increase intensity seems to have excellent results. So what I'm going to get Brent to do is he's going to do some dips. Now, this particular apparatus has steps, but if you don't have that, you can easily just put a step of yourself, a chair, anything that allows you to lift the weight with your lower body. You don't want the upper body doing any of the lifting. So I'm going to get Brent to walk up to the top. And he's just going to do the lowering, but I'm going to get him to lower in about 8 seconds. So start coming down here, Brent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And he's going to go right back up to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's perfect. Remember, we're going to go up 1 more time, right to the top. No break. Coming down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good, I'm gonna stop you right there, Brent. Now what you want to do with this technique is continue to perform the exercise so you can no longer lower the weight under control. As a general guideline, I normally teach people when you can't lower the weight in roughly 4 seconds, that's when we terminate the set. The fatigue is going to be much greater than going to positive failure or lifting a weight till you can no longer move it anymore. If you go to true negative failure, the point where you can no longer lower the weight under control, a trainee can literally drop like a stone. This is no longer safe. So we want to make it that when Brent is really struggling to maintain his posture, to maintain his proper form, that's when we terminate the set. Now when it comes to this negative only exercise, there are certain exercises that lend themselves well to the protocol and others that don't. If you want to do a negative only squat, the amount of resistance that most people could use, you would need 3 or 4 very strong individuals to lift the weight up to you, and then that is vertically compressing down on your spine, putting you in a position where you could not lift it, and your spotters really need to be on the ball to make sure that it's done safely. However, with something like a dip, again, you can use your legs to perform the lifting motion. This also lends itself well to chin-ups, as the same idea applies. You can lift your body up to the chin-up bar and then do the lowering. Certain barbell exercises, like a curl for the biceps, can easily be done with one partner. Someone can normally lift the weight to you and then you do the lowering. But again, an exercise like a bench press, you need a few people to lift that weight up to you, and that weight, which is heavier than you can lift, is coming down upon you. It doesn't lend itself well in terms of safety. The next advanced technique that we're going to do is called a pre-exhaust. This has been used by bodybuilders for decades as a way of increasing intensity and building muscle. What a pre-exhaust is doing an isolation movement directly followed by a compound movement. For those who don't know, an isolation movement is a single joint exercise. In this case, it's going to be the leg extension. It's then going to be followed by a multi-joint exercise, which is going to be the leg press. Now we're fortunate enough to have a machine that's going to allow us to switch between isolation to compound movement with almost no break. This is how we want it performed. The least amount of time possible between movements. If you don't have access to something like this, it can still easily be done with several free weights. Prime example would be using a dumbbell fly, and then as the chest is exhausted, going right into a press. Now the idea behind that is a lot of people, when they do a compound motion, we'll use the bench press for example, their shoulders or their triceps tend to give out long before the larger muscles of their chest does. By isolating the chest with the fly, we are now temporarily making that muscle weaker than the smaller shoulder and the smaller tricep muscles, and then we're using the fresh strength of the shoulders and triceps to push the chest further than it could with normal exercise. So I'm going to get Brent to demonstrate the movement. Brent, when you're ready, going up, hold, easing down. You can go just a little bit faster than that, Brent. Nice and smooth, hold, good. Perfect. Hold, good, easing down, try not to let that weight stack touch. Come on up, hold. Perfect, come up. Now we're just going to do one more. I know Brent has more strength than this. Come on up, hold. And when he puts this rep down, he's going to let his legs out. We're going to instantly drop this down, and he's going right into a press. Perfect. You're going to ease back as far as you can, right there. Try not to let that weight stack touch this time, Brent. Easing down, right there. Again, always trying to maximize range when we can. Easing down, right there. And just for a day, we're just going to do one more, Brent. Right there. Perfect. You're going to bring that back. Let your legs down. Now, done properly, both of these movements are going to be taken to momentary muscular failure. It's a very, very hard way of training. It's not something that most people can do every single workout, but used sporadically, it is a great way of increasing intensity and hopefully increasing your results.